All right, now we're recording.
Okay, friends. If I'm being honest, I feel a little bit scared and nervous and timid to do this, but why not? Let's start a YouTube channel.
Hey, friend.
Hi, MegAnne. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you.
Second round.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So for everyone who's watching now, we recorded this entire video yesterday. It was great energy, so wonderful. After a few tech snafus, we hopped on and did it like on an Instagram call. And just in case you're wondering, you can't screen record while you're doing an Instagram call, which hindsight, I guess for privacy is a really great reason why, because there's no audio. So we had all of the video and no audio. And I was like,
I had no idea.
no. So this is take two, which something you said, Marcela, which was like, sometimes it's better the second round. So cheers to the second round. Here we go. Thank you so much for chatting and meeting. I know we spent time getting together and getting to know each other yesterday. So now we can just like get back into
Flow right in.
I know, it's like a bonus treat. We get 2 nights with each other.
Now I feel like I'm just talking to a friend.
I know. It's so, yeah, perfect. All right. So how about you introduce yourself and tell everybody what it is that you do?
Okay. Hello, everybody. I am Marcela Collier. I am a mom of twin toddlers. I am a foster mother. I do therapeutic foster care. So they call us therapeutic providers. And I have an Instagram account and I have a YouTube channel all about sharing my experience as a mom of toddlers, as a foster mother, as a therapeutic provider, to empower you moms with the confidence that you got this called motherhood.
Yeah, I love that. You got this. It's like your cheer, like your mother roar, like we got this.
We got this.
I have I have 3 questions actually. So the first question is, can you explain what exactly is therapeutic foster care?
So therapeutic foster care is, first of all, it is foster care, right? But it's designed to be therapeutic, in a therapeutic setting, in a therapeutic trained house for children that have high behavioral needs. So these children, they have to have at least one psychiatric diagnosis, and they have to have behaviors that are impairing them to function in life or in society. So they come to my care in foster care, but they come to me and we sit down. We are a team, like it's not just me. I have a whole team of people, different professionals. We sit down and we write down a treatment plan to help this child achieve, improve his behaviors and achieve the goals, so he's able to be functional and finally either go back to his family or go to regular foster care, depending on what the transition planning is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love it. So second question is, typically how long do you foster someone? Like what's the typical, in your experience, what has been the typical
So
length?
everything depends on the transition planning of the child. So the first prerequisite for a child to be in therapeutic foster care is that they have to be in foster care, right? So it doesn't matter if they reach their goals or not. If they get out of foster care, they would not be able to be in the program anymore.
And what would disqualify someone from foster care?
Okay, so how I said,
I'm digging deep.
there are children that have high behavioral needs, and these needs are impairing them to function. So usually, and it's very common that the children that come to me, they've been disrupted many, many times. I'm saying 14 times is the average amount of times that a child that comes to me is been disrupted in the system.
Wow.
Yes. They pretty much, like, what happens is they go to families that are not trained in behaviors, they are not trained in helping children regulate their emotions. So they give up on these children and they go from house to house to house until they get referred to the program, which is pretty sad because the program should catch it sooner than later. And so these children, because all these disruptions are just added trauma that I have to work with when they come with me.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So like peeling back all those layers and just like being able to establish that trust and safety and that
so
connection. That's like a special, I call my work Rubik's Cube work, but that feels like it really is like true Rubik's Cube. Like you're just constantly problem solving.
Yes.
And yeah, go ahead. No, you go.
And it seems when they come to me, right now, the one that I have, he's been with me 2.5 years. So he's already stabilized, but when they come to me, they come in crisis. And in crisis, that it doesn't last a week, it doesn't last a month, it could last a year, like it could last a year, it could last more than a year, depending of the kind of trauma that they come with.
Right. Because that's something too, I think, I know we'll get more into it, but I feel like sometimes when I work with parents too, they are like, okay, well, when will this get better? Right. And I'm like, if I could, I would be a millionaire if I could say these things and like make that happen. It's so hard to do. Look at my cat. He's just like hopping around.
But you know, MegAnne, you could tell them this. I don't know when, but I'm confident that it will get better.
Yes.
If you keep being consistent with the things that I'm teaching you.
Yes, that's what it is. Like, I don't know when, and we can't put a date, but we will always hold on hope because it will.
It will.
Yeah. So how did you get into this work?
Okay, so that's an awesome story. I was struggling for years and years to get pregnant, right? I was struggling for 6 years to get pregnant and I couldn't. So I thought that I wanted to be a foster mother. At the time, I wasn't trained. I wasn't a behavioral health professional. I wasn't an access provider as I am today. I was just a woman with a big desire of loving a child.
Yeah.
So I started doing foster care with that big desire, and this beautiful child came to me. But very soon, everybody realized that he needed to be in therapeutic foster care because he had so many behaviors and he had 2 psychiatric diagnoses and he had a lot of medical conditions that were affecting his behaviors. So they pretty much told me he needs to be in therapeutic foster care and you only have a regular foster care license. Pretty much we're taking him out of your care. And that scared me so much because I wanted to keep him.
You bonded, you invested.
Yes, I was super invested. So I just decided to go back and get the training needed and get my therapeutic license. It took a long time. And I was very blessed that they allowed me to have him in the house while I was getting trained. And in the meantime, I had a lot of support from professionals, but that's how I got into therapeutic foster care. And I feel so blessed with all the things that I learned and the experiences that I've had with these children. And now I have my own biological children, the twins, and I still do therapeutic foster care because I believe that if there is just one adult that cares for this kid, that doesn't give up on this kid, whatever the kid is, this kid is going to be successful. Yes. And I want to be part of that little part of their lives.
Like you get to like plant a little seed and then you just nurture it with love and nurture it with like encouragement and you get to watch it bloom.
Yes.
Where before there was maybe no seed or they didn't even know how to access it.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. I didn't share last night. My husband and I also, suffer is not the right word. Battle is not the right word. We were blessed with infertility, I guess, too. And it is like this desire. And we've talked about foster care too. And where we've come to, I feel like I would be able to do it and feel very confident. And he feels nervous about the attachment where he'd feel very attached, much like you and that little boy. You're like, oh, no. Like he's mine now. because we've like waffled back and forth on that. So I love hearing how you got involved and how you just fell into this and just kept like staying the course and growing. Like,
but you know what? Like some people ask me, how do you let these kids go? Because kids have left my house.
yeah.
For me, it's the same way that with my twins, I prepare them to take on on the lives on their own. So if I say, okay, these children leave my house to keep suffering, to keep being traumatized, to keep being in the place where they are, I would feel terrible. But I'm here to make sure that the plan, whatever the plan that is laid for them, is a plan of success. And with every child that's been in my therapeutic foster care, I have a strong connection. Even way after they leave my house, they still call me. We still get together. We still, we still keep in contact because I mean, the system called them clients, like they're my clients, but to me, they're my kids, right? And
Could you put in your
one day they're going to leave the house, but they're still gonna be my kids, and that's my job, to prepare them to take their lives on their own. And that's what I do with therapeutic foster care.
So so how, when you started, what was that like? Let's talk about 3 lessons that you learned. What was your top lesson that you learned bringing it in and working?
Okay, this is the main one. And this lesson, I learned this lesson before I started doing therapeutic foster care, when I was a regular foster mom. When he came to my house and I saw all these behaviors, I saw all these issues, I thought, I was convinced that my love and my motherly instinct was going to make things better. And yes, it developed the relationship, but I wasn't equipped, I wasn't ready, I wasn't prepared to help this child overcome these big challenges. Love doesn't solve behavioral challenges alone.
Yes. Wait, pause. Can we rewind? I'm going to write it down. Say that all again.
Love alone doesn't solve behavioral challenges.
I want to piggyback on that and just say love is also not an indicator, or your child's behavior is also not an indicator of how much you love them.
Right. Yes. And it's not an indicator that if you are a good or a bad mom.
Yes.
Let's also. Thing that I felt at the time. I felt like I should, maybe that's why I can't even get pregnant, because I'm not a good mom. That's what I felt. This mom guilt came on me.
Even before.
Until I learned better, and I learned how to help this child regulate his feelings, and I learned how to help this child de-escalate when he was his emotions were raising up, and I helped this child process all the trauma that he had. And I realized that it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was the fact that I didn't know what I didn't know, right?
And you do the best you can with what you know until you know different and better. And then you can, you're fine. And then you can do better. And that too, I think a lot of parents need to hear that message, is that behavior doesn't change with love alone. Your child's behavior is not an indicator of how much you love them. And you don't know what you don't know. And so often we come to be a parent or be this role using what we were taught, using what our parents taught us, or using what our spouse's parents taught them, and then trying to like mash it together. It can just become like an A-bomb with the best of intentions.
Yes. And it could be the source of a lot of conflict between parents themselves, because when people get married, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they don't talk about the way they're going to raise their children.
Yeah, but that's not even on the radar.
They're just like, we're just gonna have kids and they're gonna be perfect. That's what I thought.
Totally, because that's what
I thought. But when the kids come, then you have the idea, okay, I'm just going to raise them the way I was raised, because I turned out just fine. and your spouse is thinking the same. And you guys, both of you were raised differently. So the parenting styles start to crash when situations start to come up.
Yeah, it's like so much. And it does too. It's because then they ping on again. It's like this idea of shame of like, I'm not good enough. I don't know. And then it can ping against each other. Like, well, you don't know, or you're the bad parent, or, oh, you're the bad parent. It's like this authority kind of it can become like this undermining relationship. So how did you and your husband work through that?
Okay, so first of all, it is very interesting because he is a behavioral health professional as well. And even with all this training, because he had a different upbringing, a different experience growing up, we came from different perspectives. So the first thing was that I started like realizing that the way that he sees things is not the same way that I see things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let me tell you a little story. With this child that I was telling you about, I felt that I wasn't given the authority position from my husband. And that's what I felt because growing up, and then we go talking about the upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I was in a two-parent house where my mom was giving all the daily routine instructions, and my dad was kind of the overseer. And if something happened, then he came in the picture and he fixed it. So that's the expectation that I had, right?
Right.
My husband, he grew up in a single parent house where his mom filled all the roles.
Yeah, so different.
To our marriage to fill all the roles, and I came into our marriage expecting to be the manager of the house because that's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that created friction once this child came to our care.
Right.
And even so, how I said, even with all the training we had that conflict, right? So the first thing that we did, or the first thing that I did, was to stop and think, what doesn't make him think that way? Because most of the time, I don't believe that our spouses want to demean us or they want to disrespect us. I don't think that's their main intention, right? They love us.
I totally agree with that.
Right? But if you think about how they process information, like how they see the world, which is permeated by their past experiences, you will be able to understand them a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me in the way that when I had the talk with him, I was able to be a little bit more empathetic, and I was able to be aware of how things were going because I knew more or less how he saw things, right?
Yeah.
And I brought awareness to him on how he did things. I even pointed it out, like, don't you think because you grew up in a single parent house, then that's why you feel that you need to do everything, right?
Right.
And then he was like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I made him realize that.
Yeah, you just like helped bring that awareness because again, like so many of us run our lives unaware and just reactive, and like taking that time to just do a little reflective, like how did I get here, or what had to happen for me to get here, and
Yes.
what is it that I want to take me there, and like what skills are missing, what skills need reinforced, where can we work towards this common goal so that we're not like forking apart.
Yes, yes. And so that was the first thing I did. The second thing, when I did have the talk with him, I made sure it wasn't in front of the child.
Oh, yes.
Because every time children see that there is no agreement, there is no consistency in the way that they're being raised, that there is disagreement in their parents or caregivers, they could take that as a way to start manipulating parents on getting the things they want because they know parents are not agreeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing, the authority in the house might start, breaking up a little bit. So I just decided to have the talk, the conversation privately. And then I made sure from all the training that I have helping children regulate their feelings, the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that I learned was that I cannot process feelings with a child when this child is very escalated.
Oh
So
yeah. I call that
I applied the same principle with my husband.
flipped lid, right? Like when they're lid. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, the
Yeah,
brain.
the brain. It's like when they're flipped and you're flipped, it's not like a no-go zone.
No. So how do you know you're more likely to be flipped? When you are in the spot, right? When you are in the situation. Don't don't have the talk when you are in the situation, when you're on the spot. Do it either before or after, when you're calm, right? So I waited to that moment and I had the conversation with my husband and I let him know what I thought, what I felt, my expectations, because that's one other thing. When we get married, we think that our husband or our wife knows what we expect from them.
like a like telepathy. Like
Right.
I just download all of my things and then they cross boundaries that they don't even know that they're crossing.
Exactly. So that's how I had the conversation with him. Yeah, and we came up with agreements and it worked.
Yeah, and that too is just like having, I think what you say is like give yourself that gift of pause and do that active work
Yes.
to be the model not only to your partner but also to the child, that they too don't have to react to their big emotions.
Yes.
And sometimes I like to share with parents, like, audibly go through that active work, like audibly say, like, I'm feeling very frustrated right now and I need to go calm down and take a walk, like audibly just say these things, and so that they start to learn that these are the tools that you're using. Because
That's excellent. Mm-hmm.
because I had one dad say, I can say that, and I'm like, if you said that to a 15-year-old boy, I feel very angry right now and I'm going to not yell but go take a walk. Like what you're giving them is like, hey, when you feel angry, don't yell, go take a walk and then come back to it. And he's like, oh, all
That's
right.
awesome. Yeah, children learn by modeling as well.
And it's hard, and that too is like hard for us to keep that accountability, that okay.
Plus, it develops their feeling literacy, which is being able to recognize and verbalize feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And second thing, and one thing that I want to add to what you were saying is, I even do it with my toddlers. You don't even have to have teenagers.
Yeah.
I
No.
even do it with my toddlers. I
Yes.
express my feelings to my toddlers,
Yes.
but this is something that I'm very, very like animal about it, very strict about it. I always make sure they know it's not because of them, right? My feelings are my feelings, is my
Yes.
stuff, right? Like, you're not a bad boy because I feel frustrated right now.
Yes.
You are not, because children internalize things.
Yes.
And when they see their parents getting angry, or when they see their parents getting frustrated, they think there is something wrong with them. So
Yes.
I'm always very aware and very strict with me about letting my children know that it's not about them, that is not that there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
That is just me processing my feelings.
Yes. And that too is like, that's that phrase, like if you catch yourself saying like, you're making me so angry right now, or like, I can't stand it when you do this. And those are like markers too. And my husband, actually, when we got together, that was like a non-negotiable for me too, because he'd be like, oh, you're making me, and I'm like, I am not in charge of how you're feeling. I am in charge of my feelings, and you are feeling anger.
Exactly.
Totally okay to feel that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I do with my toddlers. Like last week, to be honest with you, I felt really overwhelmed being a mom.
Yeah.
And I started crying. And then Miguel, one of my twins, he looked at me and then he said, Mama's sad. And I said, Miguel, Mama feels overwhelmed. And I told him why. And maybe it went over his head, maybe it did not. But I explained exactly what I felt. And at the end, I said, you are an awesome boy. It is not you. It is me. And it's my feeling. And this is what I'm going through.
And I think that So as a teacher, I did that in my classrooms too. It's just like, go through this process and help model this process. And I think it's so important, like you said, the younger you can do it, even though maybe they don't know conceptually, because they shouldn't know like cognitively what's happening, but you're starting again to plant those seeds so that you're teaching them, so that we're not getting to the point of their teenagers and be like, well, this is called anger, you know, like you're disciplining them, you're teaching them about this as you go through it. And what I love about this idea is that you allowed and you were vulnerable, that you're crying, but two, then they saw you do the active work and then saw you happy again, you know, like, so this is an impermanent feeling.
Yes, because I've heard many mom friends saying, I don't cry in front of my kids, I don't want to make them sad. You know what? I do cry in front of my kids. If I feel emotional, I do cry in front of my kids, because I don't want them to feel that when they want to cry, to feel that there is something wrong with them, that that they're not worthy enough, or there is something that is not right with them, because they've never saw mom and dad showing their feelings, so feeling might not be okay.
Yeah, and I think for two boys, like, yes, we need more boys feeling that's a masculine thing to do, right? That's totally normal and okay, and just normalizing that as soon as they can, you know. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, more people. So I hope if you're listening, you're like, I don't know, should I cry in front of my kids? I hope that you take away like, yes, it's okay, because guess what? We all cry, and it's all something that's just natural. I was talking to a couple clients today, and I said, you know, we need to help show them that anger is just a feeling, just like happy is. You know, there's not one that's better, one that feels better, one that we're more comfortable feeling. But when we can feel anger just as naturally and smoothly as happy, because they're all fleeting feelings, you know, and if we're only trying to feel happy all the time, then that can go into like a danger zone, right?
Or it could develop people pleaser kids, you know?
Yeah. Or this perfectionism, or people pleasing, compliance, which is great when they're 2, 3, and 4, right? That's what we want. We're like, oh God, thank God they're listening to me. But when we elongate out to like that, like 21 age, that like teenager age, no, you want them to be able to stand up for themselves and advocate for themselves and feel safe with knowing what to do in these situations.
Yes.
I was talking to my 18-year-old niece this weekend, actually, and she is going to college next year. And I was like, hey, I'm going to get you an Uber gift card. And she's like, but campus is so small. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to assume that there's going to be a time she's going to be playing on their soccer team.
I didn't know there were gift cards for Uber.
Yeah, yes. I was like, I'm going to get you one. I was like, because I never want you to feel like you're in a position that you can't get away, right? I was like, because you're going to go out with your soccer team and they're going to be doing things. And if it crosses where you want to be, I want you to know that you can always safely get home, right? And I said to her, I was like, but I'm sure everybody's telling you things like this, right? And she was like, Titi, she calls me Titi. And she's like, Titi, no one's told me that. And I was like, well, I'm glad that I am saying this, because there's going to come a time where you're going to want to please the soccer team because, you know, they're doing stuff, and that's your right. Like, to be on the team, you want socially to be accepted.
Yes.
But if things are happening and it's crossing your boundary, like, say you have a migraine, say that you had like bad Chipotle and that you need to go home. I was like, say anything and go. And I thought like, wow, one, the schools aren't saying these things to prep children, and that no one had that conversation at any point to say, hey, you know
what, I should buy an Uber gift card for my teenager here.
Yeah. I think it's just like that. And at first my husband was like, that's kind of a silly gift to give her, you know, a teenager. And I was like, are you kidding? I was like, it's not like
it's a lifesaver.
I was like, it's not a phone case. It's not something like glitzy and gleaming. I was like, but this could be like, this is a life raft.
Right.
And that peace of mind too, for her mom and for her, just to know like, hey, no matter what, you always have, no matter how small your campus is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we got there, but getting back.
So how I said that I had the conversation. You said something very, very important. Some people might say, but I've had this conversation endless times and nothing productive has happened. So what do I do next? Okay, so you said one thing. You could model
Mhm.
the relationship, the parent-child relationship that you think is best in your house, and your husband and your wife could start seeing the results and the fruit of what you're trying to establish. So
Yeah.
you can start modeling. Another thing is you could think about two things, because sometimes we, as in the marriage, we get tangled up in little arguments that may not, that don't have a big importance, and we make it bigger, we make it important. For example, with my husband, I had this little back and forth, because I think that the twins shouldn't watch TV right before bed, and he thinks it's not a big deal. um and the conversation wasn't productive. He still like was in on his thinking, and I was still on my thinking. So we compromised. So when things are not like, live or die situation, or compromising your values, it's okay to compromise. He gave in a little bit and I gave in a little bit, and
Mhm.
the decision that we came with was, okay, if it's not like 20 minutes right before bed, it's okay. So, and I was comfortable with that. So you have to wait. You have to wait how important it is, the conflict that you're having, and if how much you can give in, right? Don't be
Mhm.
so stiff and this is how it has to be and it has to be my way. No, give in a little bit and have him give in a little bit.
Again, too, that's like modeling that active work, right? Like that active work of like, okay, well, I'm going to be respectful and be encouraging and show up so that I don't have to like tighten the reins and be the one in control.
Yes. Yes. So give in
Hard.
a little bit. Um, what about if somebody tells us, but what I'm in disagreement with is really core value for me? What do I do in this? Compromising, I don't want to compromise this. So,
Mm-hmm.
how I said and how you said, modeling is huge. Another thing that you can do, you could keep expressing your feelings and you could keep talking about it when you guys are cool down. And the third thing is, many times, the parenting disagreements is not the issue. Many times the issue is not the issue. Many times there are underlying, under the table problems that are affecting the marriage, that are that are being reflected in the parenting. So
Yeah.
maybe you haven't forgave him for something he did. Maybe you haven't processed traumas, childhood traumas, or he hasn't processed childhood traumas. Or maybe there is something else. Maybe just, we don't even have to go that extreme. Maybe just like moving from a state to another state, maybe
Mm-hmm.
changing jobs, like those transitions of life could put us on edge, a little
Yeah.
bit on edge.
Yeah.
So just to be mindful of that, many times like the problems that we encounter in parenting might be just the fruit or the reflection of bigger things going on, or things that are going on in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I want to add there is that sometimes too, uh, when, when what I have heard when people say, well, I talked to him about it and we talked about it, and they talk about it using you statements like, well, you let them watch TV, and
Mhm.
you always, that's it. You always let them watch TV. Like we go to these extremes, right? Because it's like you said, like this underbelly current. So
Yes.
just to like piggyback off of that, just to share like a tool, like an accessible tool there is to use the words, I feel blank, fill in the blank,
Yes. When
because blank, and
yes.
I wish blank. So I feel frustrated because the twins are watching TV, and I wish that we could come up with an agreement that, half an hour before bedtime, there's no TV or whatever it is. I just use that example because you had
that is awesome, because when you use the I feel when statements, it focuses the attention on particular things, specific issues that you want to address. Because sometimes just sitting down with your husband, like if I sit down with my husband right now, I say, okay, let's just talk about our parenting styles right now.
It's like, here is a can of worms and let's open it.
Let's open this can of worms right now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like that's a therapy session right there. That's a therapy, a therapy season right there. No,
a season.
like just work little issues at the time. Right now we're talking about, because we women, we are professionals in bringing things up. If we're talking about the TV, we're professionals in bringing other things up, the list. We keep a list, usually. We keep a list. So we are professionals in bringing up the list. No, leave the list aside. Maybe don't get rid of it because you want to address everything of the list, but work on one thing at a time and don't bring the list up, right?
That too is like when we start going down that list, what happens? Think. Because and then they get defensive, and then they feel something. I feel like too is like it becomes like this Mount Everest, and it's just this sense of inadequacy. It's like, okay, well, tell me everything I'm doing wrong, and clearly I'm not good enough. And it pings into that underbelly of like shame or trauma or whatever that is. So I love that. It's just like, I think we said last night, the phrase that I heard was like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? It's like this one little step, because it can become overwhelming for you and them. And then it just becomes a stalemate where like nobody's going forward.
Yes. So if you're talking about the bedtime issue, the TV bedtime issue, stay on that lane. Yes. And then move on to the next thing.
But I want to highlight again.
Keep that list under your sleeve.
It's active work. That's that active work of like staying in that lane and kind of checking yourself when you're like starting to go over. It's like beep, 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 get back in.
Get back. And bring keep them in perspective as well. Like bring your husband back because they could bring it up too.
Yeah.
If you're a husband, it's very possible your wife is going to bring up the list. So try to guide her to keep that list somewhere else.
Yeah, I hear you, but now's not the time. I hear you, and I want to tackle this list with you, but I need it in one step at a time.
That's being very empathetic. Yeah. Like I hear you. I know that you want to process this. What about like give him a plan? What about we talk about this other thing tomorrow or the next day or whatever? So so that's how I think parenting style issues could be solved. And how I said about tackling one thing at a time, the same, where I got this and one of my trainings, that's how they taught me to process different situations with these kids. We don't overwhelm them with the kind of worms, with the big trauma, with the big picture. No, we work one little behavior at a time, and then I go for the next thing. Praise and recognize, acknowledge every little progress that you see.
I have a story. Yeah, I have a story about that. When I was in the classroom, I had a 4-year-old, and he was highly aggressive, and he knew that I was safe. So every day he would sit by me at lunch, and he would put his left hand on my knee, just like you're there. And when he would get angry at someone for anything, he would come over and he would hit me, or he would punch me, or he would kick me. And we worked really hard. I was like, dude, you can scream in my face, like, but we worked on like not like breaking the physicality, right? And so I remember this one day at lunch, his milk spilled or something happened, and he stood up in his chair and he got so close to my face and he just screamed like, I am angry. And I was like, yes. and I like gave him I was like, can I give you a hug? And he was just like, what? Because he was then expecting me to like lecture, and I was like, you use your words, like, thank you. And you worked, and just acknowledge like how much work. And I share that because sometimes people are like, but he still screamed at you. And I was like, but I was focused on the hitting. Like, it is like, he took that next step to that bridge. Like, is it where he's going to end up? No. But if I were to be like, and you're not supposed to scream at me too, then it's still like getting him back into that box.
And if you're a student of MegAnne, I'm going to warn you with something. You might be judged by other parents
yes.
who don't know what you're doing,
Yes.
right? Because, for example, in this situation, if other adults would have seen this, they would have been like, oh, this child is being really disrespectful, and they do not know what she's working towards, right?
Yes.
So if you're a student of MegAnne, you know what you're working towards.
Yes.
You know the plan, and don't care about what other people say. Don't care about the looks. I've been at Walmart with children kicking and screaming, and other people looking at me like I'm the worst mom in the world. But I know that I'm sticking to the plan, and I know where I'm going with this child. So you will be judged. But that doesn't mean that you're doing things wrong. No, you're doing things right.
How I love to frame it is to, again, just say like elongate, is who do you want to come and knock on your door for Thanksgiving? That's who you should be worried about, because that's who's going to be past you through that moment. Not those people in Target, not the other preschool parents, not your friends necessarily, you would hope, but like, like, again, modeling, like, I'm not going to judge you, because you don't know me, and being focused in on that moment of like, okay, I feel embarrassment because I'm at Target and everyone's looking at me, but I am focused on you.
Yes.
It's so hard. It's so hard. And
people give their opinions like, you should get my timeout right now. I'm like, no, for me this is progress. Like, like they're following the plan, they're following the instruction.
Right. And that too is like, you should give them a timeout. I'm like, oh God. Then it's like, well, then I'll be doing more work.
Right.
It's like,
time out. You take him to a room, you leave him with all their feelings.
That's a whole nother video.
Like, what to do, but that's a whole other thing.
That should be our next video. It's just like a timeout rant.
Yes.
But at least they're not hitting them, I guess.
Yep. So, for example, a little tip with the child that I was telling you about, he was highly aggressive as well. And then he would pull a lot of holes in my wall. So I knew he needed to release physically that anger. So I bought a bunch of pool noodles. So when he was angry, I gave him all those pool noodles, and I mouthed it. I started ripping
them apart. Yes.
And then he joined me, and then he would sweat and sweat. He was ripping it, and then he would I could tell the release. And he was back to ground zero. And yes, one day we did it in the backyard, and I saw the neighbors, because I don't have a 2-story house. I saw the neighbors through the window like they're crazy. What are they doing? But you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
right? You could be judged, but you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and that judgment comes from someone who doesn't even know. Like, if they were using empathy and put themselves into your shoes, they would have no idea, what to do. And they don't know your plan, and they don't know like your focus, your mission, your values, all the work that you're doing. Nobody else knows that intention other than you, which is so important to have that intention rooted so front of mind all the time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about like, what if like I'm listening now and I'm like, okay, this all sounds great, but like, I don't know, what if it is like an underbelly current? Like, where would you suggest like someone reach out to?
Could you please rephrase the question? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, I guess what I was asking is like, if someone's listening now and they're like, this is all great, this is all perfect, but I don't know even how to start with my husband, or, you know, what if it is our marriage, or what if it is, like, where would I go for that?
Okay, so if they're already having conflict with their parenting styles, the first step is to bring awareness of what that comes from. Like, look at your past experiences, look at your life, your upbringing. The second one, to have a conversation privately about it and come up with, if it doesn't compromise your core values, you could come up with a compromise. And if it does compromise your core values, you don't want to compromise, so you could start modeling. You could start and modeling, and when you see a little, like a little glimpse of him trying to follow what you're doing, praise him for that. You could, what did I say? Modeling. You could look for additional help, because sometimes our problems, you know, in parenting styles could be just the reflection of deeper issues. And you could keep talking and expressing your feelings when you are cooled down.
Yeah, I think that getting that help piece is kind of like where I was kind of guiding you, is because I think that there's this huge stigma about asking for help, that there's a stigma about going to a counselor or a therapeutic provider or a coach or anyone to say.
Why are you waiting? Go to MegAnne. Follow her.
Yeah, but I think that is it's a huge stigma. It's like the stigma of just saying like, oh, well, because going, you know, looping it back to where you first started the conversation is like, we inherently, because of everything that we digest, like social media, real media, any sort of like friend, our own families, you know, we have this thought that we were just born and we just know. And I'd say for, you know, 50%, sure, great. If it's working great, it's working great. But when it becomes not successful and you're being filled with these feelings of anxiety or frustration, and you're just like, I hate my kid, you know, like I don't like them, I don't like what this is, that can feel like so isolating and so lonely. And then we don't know that it's okay to reach out for help.
And do you know something, MegAnne? There is a myth that is holding back parents from accessing help from you and from other professionals. The myth is that they see that their children are growing, and they think that it's just going to go away. If I ignore it, it's going to go away. If I ignore it, they're gonna get it. They're growing up, they're understanding more things every day. You know what? If anything, it's going to get worse.
So much worse. I say, like,
if they don't learn how to, and you know, I say it by experience, because I get teenagers that don't know how to, they don't know what they're feeling is called anger. I get teenagers that have all these issues because nobody taught them how to self-regulate when they were a little younger. So if anything, things are going to get worse. So that I said, it is a myth that deceives parents. It is a very common thing. I've heard it a lot. And sometimes I've heard them from other people. I was just gonna get better, just give him time. He's growing up, like he's gonna figure it out. No, you are his or her parent. And as his or her parent, you are his guide, you are his coach, you are her coach, but you need a coach as well. You need to be under somebody to guide you and to show you what is the way that you should show that child.
Yeah, I love that. That is like the first myth, right? And it's also too that age is connected to behavior. Like, well, you're 4, you should be behaving this way, or you're 2, you shouldn't be behaving this way, or you're 13, why are you still behaving this way? It's this idea of like this, I call it like the video game syndrome. Like we just think that we level up. Like when you reach this threshold, like when they go to kindergarten, then they'll be better. And it's all of these I was like, I share is like, I'm almost 35. I'll be 35 March 1st. And there is a whole host of
I'm
behaviors.
going to be 32 on March 9th.
Yay! Oh, Pisces friends. I say like that there's a whole host of things that I don't know how to do that I should be doing, you know, from someone else's standpoint, right? Like I looked it up once, like Beyonce became a millionaire at 32. So if it was age dependent, like we'd all be millionaires at 32. And it's like, no. It's focus, intention, growth, strategy, learning skills. It's all these things that come, and behavior is just that.
Yes. And not to think because you know one thing or two, then you have it all figured out. Because how I said, children evolve, children grow. And what the strategies or the things that I apply with my twins now, it's not going to work in 3 months, you know? They get smarter.
Yeah. It's an ever-changing Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, exactly.
What a fun conversation. Even for take 2, I loved it. I think it
And
was
you know what? It was kind of like we kept a guideline of the things we were going to talk about, but it was so different.
It was so different.
I feel that we talked about many other things that we didn't talked about yesterday. It was great.
Yeah,
Thank you
I agree.
so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Okay, so share more. Just again to recap us before I click off the record. Share with how people can follow you or get to know you, and where they can go to follow you.
Okay, so I am High Impact Club. I am every day on Instagram with that name, and on YouTube with that name. On YouTube, I post twice a week, one alive, one just a regular video, all about sharing my experiences as a mom of toddlers, as a therapeutic provider, as a foster mom, to encourage you and empower you with the confidence that we got this called motherhood. And the same thing on Instagram. On Instagram, every day, and on my stories, I share different tips and advice, but as well, I share insider things I do with my toddlers. Yeah? I show little routines I do with them, or exciting things I do with them. Yeah. In my channel, in my YouTube channel, I want to be a hybrid because, yes, I am a parent expert, but at the same time, I am a mom. So I want to, I just don't want to come and give you tips and advice and strategies and don't show anything of what the things I do in the real life. So I show my life with my twins. And at the same time, we talk about different parenting tips and advice.
Yeah, like you're pulling back the curtain of like, and this is what it looks like.
Yes.
I love that. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to doing more of these because I feel like more should be on the horizon. Yes.
Yeah, it's so fun.
All right. Don't go anywhere, but I'm going to click the record off.
Oh my God. I need to be safe.
Yes, please be safe.